I'm sorry.
Okay, so we're going to be talking about amusement parks of Louisville and of the region. I always like to acknowledge where I get a lot of my information from. A lot of these amusement parks I've never been to before, so I utilize other sources that I indicate there. First one we're going to talk about is called White City. More than likely, no one here has heard of White City. It started in 1907. That was what, 118 years ago? But it only lasted 5 years, to 1912. But it was a major amusement park here in Louisville. And in fact, there were a lot of white cities throughout the United States. It just wasn't here in Louisville, but they had white cities throughout the country. And they were based on the white city in Chicago. The Chicago World's Fair, which was in 1893, it was known as the White City. And it was such a success that a bunch of these amusement parks popped up around the country known as White City. And here's a listing of those white cities around the country. And Louisville is listed there as well, White City. I don't think they were under the same company, White City. I think they just chose the name White City from a marketing standpoint, since everyone knew of the Chicago World's Fair and its nickname as White City. So it opened in 1907. It was known as the Coney Island of the South, if you've heard of Coney Island, New York, similar to that. It had whitewashed buildings, over 250,000 electric lights. Can you imagine? Had various rides, and I'll talk about some of these. And its signature ride was known as Shoot the Chutes. So how to get there and where was White City at? It was in the western part of Louisville. So we have the Ohio River there. You can see where downtown is located. White City was at the far western end of Market Street. And to get there, you would take a streetcar or trolley to get there. So it's kind of a fun, you had a ride to get to the park, had fun at the park and all. So that's sort of where it was located. Now then, oh, by the way, I do want to clarify, it wasn't at the western end of Market Street, it was at the western end of Greenwood Road there, not Market Street. The Fontaine Ferry was at Market Street. Here's the entrance to White City there in the upper photograph. I'll talk about this lower photograph next. That was known as Shoot the Chutes. And what that was about is you got in this sort of carriage or this car, they put you in on this steep incline, and they released the car down this track, and you would wind up in this big lake or swimming pool in a big splash. Now, this was before the lawyers would get involved, of course. I would think that you would get all sorts of injuries and chiropractic issues based on going down this steep incline and then crashing into this pool of water. But anyways, yeah, that was its signature ride called Shoot the Chutes. And a lot of the white cities had that same theme attraction to them. They, of course, also had the traditional roller coaster that you see there. Now then, what happened to White City? It only lasted 5 years. Why didn't it last any longer? Well, number one, it said they had a major fire that devastated the park, and that's one reason why it ended. Well, I looked for that. I said, okay, well, it should be a nice newspaper article, right? Let's look in the archives, the newspaper archives, and see if we can find out what about this fire. Well, I looked in 1910, supposedly when that happened, could not find any reference to any fire anywhere. There never was, to my knowledge, a fire at White City. So it's not. So what happened to it then? It actually ran into financial difficulty. In 1909, it opened in 1907. By 1909, it was actually sold to another company, and it was reopened as Riverview Park. So White City changed names to Riverview Park in 1910, and then it continued to have financial difficulty, and it closed in 1913. Okay, there we go. And one of the interesting things is it was a very small park. It was only 14 acres. That's pretty small for an amusement park. Fontaine Ferry, by comparison, was 64 acres are 4 times the size of White City. So if you're going to spend your day at an amusement park, do you want to spend it at a very small amusement park or one that has a lot more rides to it? And so obviously Fontaine Ferry won out over White City as far as amusement park. So it ultimately closed and was sold off and became a residential subdivision, the property where White City was. And so this is the western part of Louisville. They're next to Southwestern Parkway, Greenwood Road, and Chickasaw Park, right there. And actually one of the street names is Riverview Avenue, which one of the subsequent names of White City was Riverview. So anyways, it's now a residential district, so White City no longer exists. It only lasted 5 years, and it just went bankrupt, basically. Rose Island. I'm not sure if anyone's heard of Rose Island or know much about Rose Island. It was up the Ohio River. It was actually in southern Indiana, near Charlestown, Indiana. And it wasn't actually an island. It was just a peninsula of land next to 14 Mile Creek. And to get to Rose Island, you would have to take either a boat or you would drive your car over on the Indiana side. And here are some of the attractions that Rose Island had. They had a carousel, they had a golf course, a hotel, a restaurant. They had a performance venue where people would, bands would play. They had summer cottages. It was more of a resort type of park, if you will. Not so much an amusement park per se, but more of a resort was Rose Island. And to get to it, you would take your steamboat from downtown Louisville all the way up to Rose Island there. Now, I'm not sure how many of you all rode on the Belle of Louisville, but steamboats aren't that fast.
Yeah.
It probably took them maybe half a day once they got boarded there in downtown Louisville to get way up to where Rose Island was. So it was probably a good, I want to say a 3-hour boat trip to get there. It took a while. So here's some of the history of it. It was 118 acres. It was originally known as Fern Grove. A guy by the name of David Rose developed it. That's where you get the Rose name on it. So Rose Island. Rose Island started in 1923, and in 1932 had 132,000 visitors, which is a chunk change. So a lot of people visiting there. So there is where Rose Island was, there in southern Indiana, next to 14 Mile Creek. Here are some images from it. You see the steamboat there and the people lined up and all. There was the summer cottages and the hotel that was there. You could also drive up to it and park on the Indiana side, and you had to walk across a little bridge across 14 Mile Creek to get there. I always thought this photograph was somewhat fascinating. All the people lined up there along the riverbanks. I'm like, well, what are they doing? They're just sitting there. My guess is they're waiting for that steamboat to come back to pick them up. You got the pony rides, you got canoeing on 14 Mile Creek, you got the carousel, you have the swimming pool, which we'll discuss here in a minute, and other various things that you could do. So what happened to Rose Island? Primarily the 1937 flood is what wiped out Rose Island. Yeah, so then the property was acquired by the ammunition plant there, and then it since has been turned into Charlestown State Park. So here are some remnants of Rose Island that is still there. In the lower left-hand corner, that is the swimming pool that's still there. You do not want to go swimming there, I don't think. It doesn't look very sanitary at this time. They have some historical displays talking about Rose Island. Terry Chambers wrote a nice book on Rose Island, which if you're more interested, you can purchase the book off Amazon and read more about it. And for us here in Jefferson County, we have a remnant of Rose Island, a street just off US 42, just up the street here, where we're sitting, is a road by the name of Rose Island. And I think what happened there was people would go along Rose Island Road and take a boat directly across the Ohio River. Instead of taking the steamboat all the way up, they just boarded a smaller boat and went across the river. That would have been the fastest way to get to it on the Louisville side. Next is Glenwood Park. Probably no one here in Jefferson County has heard of Glenwood Park. It was over in New Albany. This is a site plan of how it was laid out. Glenwood Park was again in New Albany, next to Silver Creek. It was at the eastern end of Spring Street at Silver Creek was Glenwood Park. And it had a variety of attractions as well. It was more of a recreational type of park. They had football, tennis, baseball. They had a theater, dancing facility, and various miniature railroad. And in fact, it was owned by a railroad company. The Louisville and Southern Indiana Traction Company owned the Glenwood Park and was basically a thing to get people over to the New Albany area on their railroad. So here's some images there, and you can see here on this one advertisement, this rail car that people would come over to Glenwood Park to visit it. And it was really an exciting trip. I'm not sure if you've heard of the interurban railroad here in Louisville, but there used to be the streetcar system, interurban. You would take that across the Big Four Bridge, over to Jeffersonville, over to New Albany, and there you can see one of the, I would think as a youngster, I think that would be pretty exciting, just that trip alone to get to Glenwood Park. Here are some more images, the carousel, the roller skating rink there in the upper right hand corner, and they had a band there that would play music to entertain people. They could canoe on Silver Creek. They had a thing called a Chautauqua, which was a festival type of thing where it was more academic, lecture, storytelling, if you will, that they did at the Chautauqua there. So whatever happened to Glenwood Park, it wasn't that successful. By 1935, it was no longer around. The property was sold for a residential area there, and in fact the street names in that area are known as Glenwood Court, so a little reminder of its former use. It was, and I'm sure by the 1937 flood it would have been wiped out also. But Glenwood Park was about 100 years ago. Okay, Fontaine Ferry Park, what we all like to talk about. Here is a nice graphic of Fontaine Ferry. You can see the Ohio River there in the distance with steamboats, because you could, in the early days, get to Fontaine Ferry by the steamboat from downtown Louisville. So first, let's talk about how Fontaine Ferry is pronounced. Fountain or Fontaine?
Fountain.
Not certain how it got
Fontaine.
named, why we call it Fountain when it's actually spelled Fontaine, but it is what it is. It's more fun to call it Fontaine Ferry, I guess. And it began as Aaron Fontaine. He owned actually a ferry company in that location across the Ohio River. Then in 1887, Thomas Ledowich purchased the property and started developing it into a recreational area, in which then ultimately Fontaine Ferry would evolve out of that. And it was 64 acres of land at the western terminus of Market Street, which was originally known as Fontaine Ferry Road. So here's a map showing exactly where Fontaine Ferry was located at the western end of Market Street. Here's where White City was. And again, you use the trolley or streetcar system to get there, or the steamboat on the Ohio River. History of Fontaine Ferry was actually designed by Hopkins Amusements out of St. Louis, and was patterned after Palisades Park in New Jersey. Some of you may have heard of that, very famous park area up there in New Jersey. Fontaine Ferry had over 50 rides and attractions, a lot of popular things, roller skating rink, the roller coaster, which was known as the Comet. And what a lot of people don't realize is a lot of the music celebrities played at Fountain Ferry. Tommy Dorsey Orchestra, John Philip Sousa's band, Fred Astaire, Will Rogers, Mary Pickford, Frank Sinatra. Oh my gosh, the list goes on and on. Any popular singer of the day performed there at Fountain Ferry. Did anyone see any of those folks that played there back in the day? But anyways, and what was also exciting was the public transportation to get there, either by streetcar or steamboat. Here are some of the posters of Fountain Ferry. So here's another graphic of Fountain Ferry, and all of the attractions, the fun attractions that they had, the roller coaster, the carousel, the Ferris wheel, the huge swimming pool. They have a major swimming pool there. The turnpike that we little kids love to drive the cars on. The entranceway there and the streetcar, you name it, Fountain Ferry had it. What a fun, fun place it was.
And horses, they had all these
They had
horses you could ride.
Oh yeah, and there's the Comet roller coaster, which again shook you around. There's a carousel, and they had these things. I've seen them in movies and all, but the kids would grab these little tokens, and I'm not sure what you did with the tokens. Did you get prizes from them? I don't know whatever happened, but you would see the kids on the carousel there reaching for the ticket or token that they were handing out, which I think you could redeem for various things. There's the Ferris wheel. They had the little roundabout car thing and the train. Hilarity Hall. I think this was the fun, at least for me, was the funnest part of a Fountain Ferry. It was an enclosed pavilion that had all sorts of little rides within it. They had the spinning bowl that you get in and would spin you around, throw you upside down. They had big slides, barrel of fun. I mean, it was just, and one thing, I looked for a photograph of it, I could not find, but it was of a mirror maze. You would go into this maze of mirrors and try to get out. It was,
that was weird.
Yeah, it was weird, but it was a lot of fun. I mean, you could go in there and spend the whole day just in this one area. There's the turnpike that we little kids love to ride on, learn to drive cars. There it is in the 1937 flood. Yeah, isn't that something? So what happened to Fountain Ferry? Well, up until 1964, it was a segregated park. And then afterwards, it was integrated. And in 1969, youth vandalized the park pretty heavily, disrupted, they robbed, looted, a lot of destruction that went on, and the owners of the park decided to close it down at that time. However, what did reopen as Ghost Town on the River in 1972, then became what River Glen Park, but 1975, or 50 years ago, was its last season for that park. The city purchased the property and became a residential district known as Fontaine Estates. So here's where it once was. You have the Shawnee Golf Course up here, Northwestern and Southwestern Parkway, Market Street, and Fountain Ferry was right in that general area. So I think there are some large footings that the roller coaster once sat on that are still there, but that's pretty much it as far as Fountain Ferry is concerned. Here was the grand entrance to Fountain Ferry. And now at Norton Commons, they sort of recreated that image of the entrance to Fountain Ferry with this clubhouse at their pool there at Norton Commons, which is a residential district out east of Louisville. Now then, these early amusement parks all had similar themes to them, such as they all had rides, performance venues, and picnic areas. They had fun public transportation to get there, either via streetcars or steamboats or interurban rail. So it was a fun journey to get to these parks. And they were all located next to a body of water, whether that was the Ohio River or a creek like 14 Mile Creek or Silver Creek. So anyways, they were all very similar in how they were arranged. Next is the one that I definitely recall. It was called Kiddieland. And Kiddieland started in 1950 and lasted up into the 1960s, probably the mid-1960s is when it closed. But it was a fun little amusement park. And again, my grandparents lived near Kiddieland and we would go there often. I recall a lot of fun times here at this location. And there were a lot of Kiddielands around the country as well. Similar to White City, there were a lot of Kiddielands. The more famous one was up in Chicago. They had a huge Kiddieland there. So where was Kiddieland located? It was in the southwest portion of Louisville. There you have downtown up here. Kiddieland was down in the Shively area, Berry Boulevard and 7th Street Road. They had this fun miniature train. I recall riding that. A lot of fun going around. Ponies,
Yeah.
carousel. It wasn't that big a park. I'm not sure how many acres it was. I want to say it was less than 10 acres of land. Very small. It's now just sort of, who knows what it is currently, sort of a leftover development, if you will. There's not a lot going on there. But I'm not sure why it didn't last. It only lasted about 15 years. Good enough for me. By then I was grown and not having to go back to it. Now then, there are still these type of amusement parks around, but they are sort of like in parking lots. You may drive around to a shopping center and see the rides set up there. They may be there a week or 2 weeks. I see these around every so often as I'm driving around. You'll see them in various shopping mall areas. They have all different Ferris wheels and rides and all. I hated this thing right here, that one there that you're in this cage and it spins around. I never could quite understand why people love that ride. It's just very topsy-turvy. Now then, this is a more current amusement park. This is an indoor amusement park. It's called Malibu Jacks. I'm not sure if any of your grandkids have gone to Malibu Jacks. My grandkids love Malibu Jacks. It's indoors. In fact, what they did here, they took an old Walmart and they tore out the interior and put all these amusement rides on the inside. Basically, that Kiddieland that I showed earlier, it was sort of like put inside an old Walmart, is what Malibu Jacks is. And the Malibu Jacks here in Louisville is out off Hurstburn Parkway near I-64, where that red star is indicated there. And here are some of the rides within it. They've got all sorts of games, video games, a miniature golf course, miniature roller coaster, spinning rides, you name it, it's there. Kind of expensive, depending on how long your kids want to stay there. What you do, you have to buy on these little like credit cards. You get money allocated there that you have to swipe to get into the attraction. And the kids tend to go through those very quickly. You're always having to put more money on your credit card to get onto the rides. One of the other fun areas of here is this bouncy park. It's called Bounce Beach. They have these huge blow-up rides, if you will. You probably have seen them at kiddie parties or whatever, but they have a lot of these bouncy houses, and the kids go in there and you just let them run loose. I mean, I'm not sure how come no one gets killed in these things, but the kids are just going every which way, running around. They have a blast. We adults just sit off by the sidelines and just hope no one gets injured, you know. But they love this bouncy beach area. They also have a laser tag area. Laser tag, I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but it's a fun game. When the grandkids go in there, I have to go in there with them and play laser tag with them. This is my grandson here. He's playing miniature golf, playing the video games, riding a surfboard, a bouncy car. This is him right there. He loves laser tag. I think that's one of the funnest things to do. So that's Malibu Jacks. By the way, Malibu Jacks, it was based in Lexington. It started in Lexington, even though it's known as Malibu Jacks. You would think it was California, right?
Yeah.
It's not. It's actually was started in Lexington. We have the second one here in Louisville. It's now expanded to 6 different locations. They just built a huge one in the Dallas area. So Malibu Jacks here from Kentucky. Who knew? Santa Claus, Indiana, over in southern Indiana. Holiday World. This is its location off I-64 as you head to Evansville, Indiana. It's nearer to Owensboro. Owensboro is just south of where Holiday World is there in southern Indiana. And it's a huge amusement park. I've never been there, but you see a lot of the commercials on TV. If you're watching your TV, they have a lot of advertisements for Holiday World. It was started by a guy by the name of Lewis Cook, and he was from Evansville, and he heard of Santa Claus, Indiana, and so he went there and found out there's nothing to do for the kids. It was just named Santa Claus, Indiana, but there's nothing Christmassy about it. So after World War II, he decided to do something about that, and he started Holiday World. Well, it actually was Santa Claus Land in 1946. Then they changed the name in 1984 to Holiday World. But anyways, this Lewis Cook guy, he actually started it, and it's still owned by the Cook family. They started Splash and Safari there in 1993. They have themed areas like 4th of July, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and Halloween, and Holiday World. Here are some of the rides that are there. They have a lot of roller coasters, a lot of fun water park. Here's the water park. I bet it's packed today, we bet. Very hot today.
I've been there many times.
Oh, have you?
Yeah.
Wow.
They're known for their roller coasters.
So have you ridden this guy here? Look at this thing. I'm not sure what this is called, but oh my gosh. Whew, my bones just ache looking at it.
It's like it's going to outer space.
Okay, Kings Island, just up the road, up I-71, and just north of Cincinnati. This was the original map of Kings Island and all the attractions. It's a large amusement park, started in 1972, and as you can see by the map here, it's north of Cincinnati on I-71. Here's another photograph of it in the early days with the Eiffel Tower as its central iconic thing. And Kings Island has really changed a lot over the years. It started out as a replacement for the Coney Island amusement park there in Cincinnati, if you're familiar with the Coney Island amusement area there in Cincinnati. And it kept getting flooded. Coney Island kept getting flooded, just like Fontaine Ferry was flooded and all. They decided to build a whole new amusement park to get it out of the floodplain. And that's when, in 1972, Taft Broadcasting, which owned the Hanna-Barbera Entertainment Company, that's when they started Kings Island. They had a roller coaster named Scooby-Doo. All of their rides were based on the Hanna-Barbera cartoons. In 1979 is when they opened the Beast roller coaster. Then it was sold in 1984 to King's Entertainment. 87 it was sold to the American Financial Corp. In 92 it was sold to Paramount. In 2006 it was sold to Cedar Fair. Then in 2024 it merged with Six Flags Amusement Park. So Kings Island has changed ownership a lot over the years, and a lot of the rides changed as well. Golly, it's been open, what, 53 years now, I want to say? Here's a map of Kings Island, of what it looks like. A lot of things going on there. This is something. It's called the Orion roller coaster. It opened just a few years ago. And look at this thing. It cost over $30 million to build. And this thing, look at this ride, it's going almost vertically straight down. Can you imagine? Oh, has anyone ridden the Orion roller coaster? No? I bet your grandkids have. But anyways, yeah, it's wild. And it dwarfs the wooden roller coaster, which is right here at the base of it there. So, yeah, wow. Yeah, these roller coasters, they're way above me anymore. There's no way I can even touch those. Of course, these are more my and your speed. These type of kiddie rides that they have there. So they do have something for the small folks. They have a water park as well. And the iconic Eiffel Tower. 364 acres. It was 3 times the size of Fontaine Ferry. No, Fontaine Ferry was 64 acres, so it was almost 6 times the size of Fontaine Ferry. Kentucky Kingdom in Hurricane Bay. That's our new local amusement park here. It is located over by the fairgrounds, I-65 and the Watershed Expressway area. Kentucky Kingdom, it's part of the fairgrounds complex right near the airport, Churchill Downs, football stadium. It's very centrally located. I don't think you can get a better location for Kentucky Kingdom. Very accessible for everyone to get to it. Here's a nice image of it with the water park in the foreground and the roller coasters there in the back. So it's also had a very complicated history. It opened in 1987, and then the following year it closed. By 1988 it closed due to low attendance. Then in 89 a guy by the name of Ed Hart came along and he revitalized the park and reopened it in 1990. Hurricane Bay in 1992. Then they started getting in these super roller coasters, T2. 1995, T2, that was 30 years ago. It was a suspended roller coaster. And then the one I really remember was known as Chang in 1997. Chang was a stand-up roller coaster. You did not sit, you actually stood up to ride the roller coaster. That was about 30 years ago. And it dramatically increased in attendance from 130,000 to 1.2 million people. Back in 1997, Chang really changed the dynamics of Kentucky Kingdom. Then, unfortunately, in 1998, it was sold to Six Flags, and they didn't quite operate it. You know, it operated, but wasn't the best of situations. There was a major tragic accident in 2007 at the Superman Tower of Power, which I won't get into, but that caused a lot of issues. And then in 2010, Six Flags went bankrupt and the park closed in 2010. It reopened 4 years later, back as Kentucky Kingdom with Ed Hart heading it up again. And then in 2021 it was sold to the Hershine Family Entertainment Corporation, which now is the operator of the park. So it's changed a lot over the years. Me and my grandson went there last summer, had a fun time. It was crowded, a lot of things going on. And again, this year I think they've been very successful as well. So Kentucky Kingdom is still doing well. Here are some of the roller coasters that they had. And this is Chang. And again, I'm not sure if anyone here rode Chang. But I rode it, and it was a lot of fun, I will say that. And the minute you got off of Chang, after you got done with it, you ran around, got back in line and ran and rode it again. It was, and the key thing was to be on the front, be at the very start of it. So if you were right here at the very front, that was where you wanted to be. And so everyone would jockey for that position to get to stand up in the very front of Chang. Then, let's see, there it goes. Here are some more graphics of today's Kentucky Kingdom, of how it's laid out. They have a splash park there as well, and different rides. They really have something for everyone there. It is a nice sized amusement park. Okay, so we went through a lot of these amusement parks. Did anyone go to any of these? Fountain Ferry, I heard earlier. Anyone go to Fountain Ferry? Any remembrances of that? Yes. What do you remember about it?
I rode the merry-go-round.
The merry-go-round? Not the coaster, huh?
But I loved to go there. It was so exciting.
It was. Yeah, I remember it back in the 60s. And a lot of people lament that it could not have overcome some of the troubles that it had in the early 70s. But it was getting to be an older park. I'm sure they had a lot of financial things to upgrade the rides and do different things. And yeah, things changed. Any other remembrances? Or if you're not from Louisville, from wherever you're from, was there a major amusement park that you enjoyed? I know up near Cleveland that they have some neat, trying to think of the name of that park, but they have a huge park up near Cleveland a lot of people like to go to.
Cedar Point.
Cedar Point, there you go. Yes, I've never been to Cedar Point. Have you ever been there?
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been there.
They have a lot of roller coasters, I believe.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. So Cedar Point and Indianapolis, I can't think of any in Indianapolis. Now in Nashville, they used to have a thing called, based on Opryland. I'm trying to think the actual name of the park. I think it was called Opryland. But they had an amusement park there, which they've since demolished. It's now a shopping mall, I think, and it's on that property. But they used to have a neat roller coaster and various things there next to the Grand Ole Opry House in Nashville that they had. I don't think of any other parks. Again, I'm sure Indianapolis probably had something, but I can't seem to recall that they had anything of interest. But anyways, yeah, so we had a lot of nice amusement parks over the years. Kiddieland perhaps would have been my favorite as I was coming out there. It was a nice, small size park. Anything else about any of that? Let's see what else we got, if I got anything else. I think that is all. Thanks for attending. Well, thank you all very much. We're going back in history to have some fun.